GatorChatter.com presents the Oxrageous Podcast.
The sportos, motorheads, geeks, sluts, bloods, wastoids, dweebies, they all adore him. They think he's a righteous dude.
And here is your host, Aaron Bland.
Well, thank you so much for that wonderful intro. It's fantastic to be back. It has been since the, first or second year of the Butters era that I did these regularly. It really doesn't matter what year since they were all the same. But things are finally looking up enough that I decided to give it another whirl and see what happens. First off, a couple of quick plugs. I just recently started a new forum for fantasy sports called rotojab.com. If you have any interest in fantasy sports discussion, any sport, head on over, check it out, see if you can contribute. Right now it's a ghost town, but I'm hoping that will change soon enough. Secondly, I started a YouTube channel doing restorations of old vintage things and antiques in my garage and decided to film the process and upload it and let people enjoy it the same way I do. If you have any interest in checking that out and maybe subscribing, the name of the channel is One Man's Junk, and the website will be youtube.com/c/oneman'sjunk. And you can watch me take old junk and make it new junk. Okay, back to what I was saying about this podcast. I first started this thing in 2013 when we were actually on the old Gators sports message board, as it was the Muschamp era, and I just picked up a microphone, decided to give it a whirl, and it went pretty well. It went better than I was expecting, had a better response than I was expecting. The problem, though, wasn't me. Well, it wasn't all me. The problem was the product on the field. And I believe that was the 4-8 season when Florida finally took a dive that none of us really thought was possible. And so here I found myself as kind of the voice of this decline, and it was a nightmare. And I tried to make the most of it, and I kind of had fun with it, but I wasn't really enjoying myself. No one was enjoying themselves. Well, finally we got Muschamp pushed out the door, and we had a new coach. The Butters era started up, so I continued. Did video podcasting through all of 2015, and then in 2016 I went back to audio podcasting and just got a few games in, and of course we were just as awful as ever, if not worse. And all I did is I found myself whining and complaining and acting depressed and sounding depressed, and I was in the middle of doing, I think, a podcast for Vanderbilt week. And I'm just going on and on with this misery, and it was like I finally heard myself, and I stopped. I turned it off. I didn't want to hear it anymore. I didn't want to hear myself anymore. Who tunes into a podcast just to hear how miserable their team is? That's not why people listen. At least it's not why I listen to podcasts. So I stopped. I'd had enough. I wasn't going to spend all the time and all the prep to dedicate my time to this hideous product. Well, we all know what happened. Butters left, yada, yada, yada. Dan Mullen comes in. None of us are very excited about Dan Mullen. I certainly wasn't. And we go into his first year. We get to the Kentucky game. That streak goes bye-bye. And the world is ending. We're back to hideousness. We're going to go 0-8 in the SEC. We're a horrible team. We're at the bottom of the SEC East. We suck. We stink, yada, yada. And then, of course, we saw what happened. The rest of the year went much better. Missouri game was another downer, but the Georgia game we hung in there, and of course had the massive great ending, last 4 games just thumping everybody. And Florida ends up ranked top 10 the season. Now this is fantastic. While Florida is not national championship material yet, they made a move under Mullen much quicker than anyone anticipated, certainly me. And the point is they're back in the conversation. We can now go into games thinking that we can win them. And so I thought to myself, this is great. Let me start the podcast again, because I've got a little enthusiasm again. And I've really never had any enthusiasm ever doing these podcasts. All the way back to 2013. We've been bad for a decade. And it's like, Gator Chatter's been around for over 5 years now. And we'd had all this crappy football ever since Gator Chatter started. I can't imagine what it'd be like to actually own a website when the Gators are in the middle of a title run. I mean, I've never experienced that. I remember being on the old Gator sports message board when our Gators won it all in 2008, and that was just great. It was just a great time. Man, I wish I'd had Gator Chatter during the Tebow years. I often dream about that. At any rate, I'm rambling. Mullen had a solid recruiting class, and then a bunch of them left, and 2020 recruiting now is looking mediocre. That's still the biggest downer. I think everywhere else, people are happy. The coaching, the discipline, actually having a strength and conditioning program, I mean, this is a big plus because Butters didn't believe in those. He had the guys go out and do ballet and then get pushed around on Saturdays. Got to be the only football coach in the history of the sport that didn't believe in weightlifting. And speaking of which, could you believe that some other school gave that idiot a job? I don't care what school it is. I don't care how small the school is. He has no business being a head coach for anyone ever again. Back to our Gators. The number one question mark, as it is year after year after year, is the quarterback position. I can say that it appears we're going into a season with a set starter for the first time in I don't know how long. Probably since Tebow left or since John Brantley was named the guy in 2010. I thought there might be more of a competition with him and Emory Jones, but it certainly doesn't look to be the case. It's Franks' team, like it or not. Franks made a lot of big strides. Can he continue making the strides? That's the big debate. I don't know. We don't know. I certainly want to say yes. It seemed to me that Franks realized that scaring teams with his legs really opened up everything else. And, of course, that needs to continue in Mullen's offense. He has to be a willing runner all the time. And when Franks gets rolling, he's really tough to bring down. We call him a giraffe because he is a giraffe. That's what he looks like. But he's a huge guy. And once he gets up to speed, defenders end up just kind of diving at his legs. On the flip side, I think Emory Jones continues to get better, and I think he's going to play a little bit this year, and I think he'll be ready to go if something happens to Franks, and I'm very excited about Emory Jones. But what I'm really excited about is winning some football games. I really don't care who's behind center. Let's win some games. Let's get respectability back. Let's keep this train moving. And here we have a great opportunity. Our Gators basically opening the college football season against Miami, nationally televised. There's nothing else on. Everybody in America is going to be tuning in to watch Florida. We talk about rebuilding the brand. This is a golden opportunity. We have to stomp Miami. I don't think I have to tell anybody how catastrophic it would be psychologically to lose this game against an inferior Miami team to start the season in front of the whole country. We cannot lose this game. Of course, Miami has a first-year head coach, although Diaz has been there a few years as defensive coordinator. And interestingly, Miami was first in the entire nation last year by a wide margin in passing yards allowed per game. They allowed the fewest amount of passing yards per game, 135 yards a game. Now, probably some of that is a reflection of the horrible quarterbacks they faced on their schedule. But still, they must have somebody in the defensive backfield that's worth talking about. Felipe Franks has this great array of receivers. Will he use them? Overall, Florida's still going to be a running team. That's what they're going to be. So many guys miss the Spurrier days, the fun and gun days. Well, we don't have them now, and they're not coming back anytime soon. And that's okay as long as we win games. To me, running for 300 yards on teams is almost as fun as passing it. There's just something about demoralizing teams by running over them on the ground that's very satisfying. And I was reading a little bit about Miami because I didn't know much about them. I certainly don't pay attention to the Miami Hurricanes, and they had a quarterback competition coming in. They had a guy named Tate Martell who transferred from Ohio State who was kind of expected to take the reins, but they had a quarterback competition and he got beat out. A redshirt freshman named Jaron Williams is Miami's quarterback. And, of course, he's never started a game before. He only took 9 snaps last year as a true freshman and completed 1 against FCS Savannah State in a 77-0 win. I mean, you can imagine Todd Grantham licking his chops at coming after this kid. And by the way, Saturday Down South rated Florida's corner combination of Henderson and Wilson the best in America, which is really high praise. Getting Marco Wilson back is huge, and I don't think enough people talk about how huge it is. As far as Grantham, he's aggressive. He's always aggressive, but he needs to be careful. You know, you can be overly aggressive and really get burned on that blitz. But boy, I'll tell you, I expect this kid Williams really to have a long day against Florida's defense. If they're smart, they won't be trying to pass the ball much, and if they do, it's going to be short passes. They've got a couple of running backs that they'll probably be featuring. A couple of young guys didn't play. Neither one of them played much last year. DJ Dallas and Cameron Harris. Not Cameron, but Cameron. C-A-M''RON. DJ Dallas did have an 83-yard run against Duke last year, so evidently he's got a little bit of speed. But overall, those two guys combined to rush for less than 800 yards last year. So we really don't know how talented their running backs are either. And, of course, it's always hard to know what to expect from Florida's offense. The biggest question mark, of course, is the offensive line. We lost 4 starters, which is devastating. And our transfer tackle, DeLance, could be out with a leg injury. Last I heard, he was on crutches, which is not a good thing. However, I like, the coaching on the offensive line has been terrific. Coming into last year, offensive line was Florida's biggest weakness, and they turned into a competent group under the new coaching staff. So again, strength and conditioning, coaching, I believe they'll have our guys ready to go. I also see Florida was 91st in plays per game last season, and the players have talked about a little, the receivers especially, about having a faster pace this year, since they're a year into the offense, they're more familiar with it, or they want to catch the defense off balance. To me, this is where players like Kadarius Toney or even Jacob Copeland could be home run guys. Maybe line them up in the backfield, roll them out. They can play running back or receiver. Those are the kind of guys I think we need to get more involved this year. But the running game was awesome last year, especially in the second half. I mean, who wasn't excited about seeing P. Ryan get the full-time gig and see what he can do with it? I mean, is there anyone who doesn't think he's going to have 100 yards this week? I can already picture Miami defenders bouncing off him as he rumbles down the field. But I'll tell you what, on paper, everyone expects Florida to win this game. Florida opened 7.5-point favorites, and it's remained about the same. I thought the line might change, but it's still around 7.5. But, Florida has played Miami 6 times in the last 32 years since the annual game ended, and Miami has won 5 of those 6. There's something about this Miami team that we always have problems with. The one win was the 2008 26-3 game where Miami had no offense at all. This Miami team is coming off a 7-6 season. They got a new coach. They got a brand new offensive coordinator. They're still learning. It would be embarrassing if Florida lost this game. I'll just say it flat out. Our players are more talented. They're more comfortable. We got a second-year coach. They know the system. They're actually lifting weights. We have to win this game. All I know is it's great that football season is starting again. Instead of this pointless speculation, I'll actually have something to talk about after we play this game and we can see where they are. It's also going to be nice to be able to talk about something on Gator Chatter. Of course, it's been a long 6 months talking about everything in the sports world under the sun. And when there's nothing being reported, our members just make stuff up. For those of you who may not have experienced a game day on Gator Chatter, please check it out because we have so much fun. We've got somewhere between 30 and 50 people in the live chat box going play-by-play and a bunch of people in the ongoing thread. And then, of course, as soon as the game's over, everyone wants to get on and talk about it. As for me, I'm going to be attempting to do short post-game podcasts, which I will post hopefully within 30 minutes of the game ending. And one of these weekly ones put out every Monday or Tuesday during the season. I also encourage people to come on and play Pick'em on Gator Chatter, which is a free game in which you pick 20 games of the college football season in a week, all the SEC games, and then any other interesting ones to fill the 20. You pick against the spread. And so the standings are kept as the year goes on. Whoever picked the most wins at the end of the year gets a $300 Amazon gift card. Last year we had a lot of fun with it, and there was a lot of belly aching throughout the season, which is kind of the fun of it. Picking teams against the spread is extremely difficult, and winning this competition with over 100 people in it is quite an accomplishment, and whoever comes out on top will have earned that gift card. I'll be uploading these podcasts on Buzzsprout this year and embedding them on the website. I should be able to connect my account to Stitcher, which is what I did in the past, so you'll be able to go to the App Store or Google Play to download the Stitcher app and find the Oxrageous Podcast in there. I will also be putting the audio to these podcasts in YouTube, so I'll have the Oxrageous Podcast already has a YouTube channel. So if you'd like, you can listen that way and subscribe, and you'll be notified whenever a new podcast is uploaded. And I'll be trying to have some guests throughout the year and some other things, but let's just see how the year goes. If we start off this season with a loss to Miami, it's definitely going to take a lot of wind out of our sails. Let's pray to God that does not happen. Thank you for listening. You will hear me again immediately following the Miami game. Go Gators.